Hello and welcome to our game. We are back for a rare Monday show. And Nisha, I tell you something, we have plenty to talk about. What a weekend of action. Delighted to be brought to you once again by Lottoland, our great sponsors. Nisha, where do you start? So many things happened over a chaotic. We won't even get into the football for now. Adam, mine it'll be along later. A crazy hurling weekend.
Yeah, mad. Like we were talking about all the home teams winning, and then we were kind of going against the home teams on the preview show, and sure we were wrong. Obviously, Dublin win Waterford, which was probably the best game. Well, actually, no, it was. Well, the televised ones, anyway, was the best game shown. And then Waterford win just fairly easily, but like the kind of the red cards, the drama, some of the goals, some of the score, some of the skill, kind of had everything you would have wanted as far as content wise. Anyway, it had everything you would have wanted.
Yeah, River Power straight in. He says, "I hope this thing of faking injuries is cut out. Basically, it cost Cork and All Ireland." What's your opinion there? It's definitely a common theme that hurlers are going to ground a hell of a lot easier than they would have 20 years ago. Brian Flannery, that played for Tip and for Waterford back in the day, had a picture of 4 hardy cornerbacks from back in the
Dick
day.
O'Hara.
Yeah, Dick O'Hara was one. Yeah, which is an infamous picture, great picture. And Martin Hannity was another. I don't remember Martin going down too easy, but we obviously Sylvie. We had a couple of cornerbacks going down. Well, listen, Sean O'Donoghue went down. He took a fair slap. Now, I suppose the thing there is where he actually took the slap and where he was holding looked like two different things. But Adam Hogan obviously went down as well when he got, I don't know if you call it a slap or a brush or what would you call it. We have a problem now. It's crept in, and there are teams and players trying to get other players yellow carded, red carded, etc. It's a thing now, and it's become more and more common.
Yeah, it's a joke. Like it's a joke. Like Don Lowe kind of summed it up when he just said it's BS. Like, you know, he was just like, nah, just it can't, because it just cannot be tolerated. And then the problem then for the refs is in the rule books again. There's no, because obviously you wouldn't have ever thought that this was going to happen. Like just because of the honor and all that kind of stuff. Like there's no thing that you can technically sanction them on, I don't think, because there's nothing that says like, oh, player must not feign injury or player cannot play up to referee or anything like that. Like there's none of that in it. So there's no rule on it where they need to immediately, I would say, call some kind of emergency thing and clamp down on it straight away. Because there's so many cameras, there's so many ways you can prove that someone is faking it, right? And then if you are and you're judged to be, you get suspended for at least one game. Because it's been going on too long now, and the same lads keep getting away with it. That Adam Hogan thing, like what I really hate about him doing it is everyone gives him all this praise and he's a scamp and he's this and that and he's your ideal cornerback and what you want is a bit of boldness and this and that. Yeah, great. And he's probably pinching and pulling and doing what he has to do to play cornerback to win, like any cornerback at that level would. But then when you get it back to jump on the ground like that, is just it's a load of balls. Like it's just absolute crap. And just shouldn't be happening, and shouldn't be condoned, shouldn't be tolerated, shouldn't be accepted.
Yeah. KCH93 just says, "Glad to see a diamond been called out. Don't always agree with Don Logue, but he was spot on." The only, and unless Hogan got it on the funny bone, it's the only. But I don't think he did.
It was on the forearm. It was like the funny bone would have to be like in and under. Like it was just a flat hurl kind of. Like it was a really lazy tackle, actually. To be honest, it was Daisy like he kind of was making an effort, but not really, and like hits him in the forearm. Like there was no force, there was no backswing, there was no real power generated in it, and you'd have thought he was shot. Like it was just, it's embarrassing. Like I don't know how you could play like that and think it's okay, and then be like the tough cornerback man. Like
as you said there, if you give it, you have to be able to take it. Like I've had corner forwards give it back to me over the years, and I'm not being smart. You'd kind of be like, all right, I can't really do that again. So, because you're going to, you know, if you're allowed to bully and a lad lets you bully on the field, you stay bullying. But if a lad gives it back to you, you know, it's kind of like, he kind of earns your respect almost. You know what I mean? You don't fall down into a heap on the ground or whatever. But it's definitely something. And even with the head high tackles I've had this conversation with you probably a month or 6 weeks ago. I do think teams have been coached in that regard to go, if there's any contact there, go down, and that is not a good thing at all either. But it's something that, it's funny, as you were talking there, I was kind of thinking, isn't it amazing how games always evolve and you always have to invent a new rule or come up with something to prevent something that you probably never thought was possible. I 100% agree with you in the sense that there's an honour to the game. It's almost like an honour amongst thieves as well, because we are, you know what I mean? Like, you're pulling and dragging, you're giving that a bit of a clip or whatever. But if you give it, you take it, and if you get one and it's fair or whatever, you take it. If you get something and it's a brush, you don't go down in a heap looking for someone to be sent off. I couldn't think of that more, to be honest with you, than feigning injury. I think it's dishonourable, and it's something that needs to be cut out of the game ASAP. That was one of a million talking points. Without even going into the games, the Sean Curry penalty, Nisha, like that was bizarre, and the fact that was blown for a goal. Like, what were your thoughts on that?
The penalty, the Dublin penalty, weirdest thing ever. And like I was sitting here watching it with my father, and I was kind of going, oh, I wouldn't have Curry taking this. I'd rather have Hedgehoe hitting this. And next thing he hit it, and I go, I knew it, and then I just see everyone running to the goal, and they give a goal. I couldn't believe it. And again, we talked about this. I'm not saying about bringing in VAR for this, that, and the other. But we were within probably 10 seconds. We're showing the replay that it didn't go over the line, right? And that, why can't someone just buzz the ref and go, hey, you actually made a mistake. That wasn't in the goal. And he goes, sorry, cross the flags. We're restarting with a free out or a puck out or whatever. Probably be a free or a throw in on the 21, whatever. But like, it was just such a bad call. And I saw somebody saying, is it any wonder referees get such abuse when they make decisions like this? Because it was a huge call to make. And
can I just say, Anisha, as well, right? How do you not confer with someone?
Oh,
how do you like, he's the pitch side of the line, right? So how do you not confer with the two lads who are standing the other side of the line?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like, this is what I'm saying. So it's just like, it's such a strange that you just go, oh, it must have been a goal. It's like, no, it was on the. So yeah, and then it kind of brought Dublin straight back into the game, because they were just leaking goals and goal chances, and you're going, geez, I again in the first half, I was saying to my father, we were watching it, and I was going, I could see Dublin conceding 5 here. And this is in the first half. It was brutal. And then next thing, they start getting, but they score that goal and they start coming back. Hedgehoe and Darragh Power, Cian O'Sullivan start like winning the ball and taking over and creating things.
See, Darragh Power's hand pass between the legs.
Did I what? He's some man, boy. When I was GPOing in Fingallians, I bump into him fairly often, like, and all. He's a funny character now. Just loves hurling and like looks after himself really, really well. But like, right, first of all, to see him, to see Heatherton in behind him, and then to decide that's what he was going to do to get the slitter to him. And then to pull it off. Just the genius, the vision, the skill, like, just that's what hurling is. And then even when John Heatherton got the slitter, that he actually didn't strike it on his right, he spun and only like tapped it. He didn't actually kind of hold it, just tapped it, popped it up, and leathered it, bounced it into the ground. It was just, that's hurling. Like, that is what you pay to go in and watch. That's what you want to see. And again, right, not that I'm a huge fan of GA Plus and a lot of the broadcasts and stuff annoys me, but thank God they were there for that game and we got to see some of that stuff, like, because that was a class match. But on the goal line thing, years ago, there's this famous fella in Freshford, from where I'm from, and he used to umpire a load of matches. Similar thing happened, and a ref ran into him and says, Tom, was it in over the line? Did it go in? He says, well, it went in, but it only went over the line for a second. And so the goal, it only went over for a second. So, but yeah, no, that was crazy. And Keith Ross was right to be given out, because it's just.
And do you know what? Wasn't he unbelievably gracious, considering they'd been like, it was a screw job, like. And the same thing happened against Kilkenny in that round robin game last year in Nolan Park. Remember, they got a penalty when TJ was found nearly on the 21, I think, was it? He was very, very gracious and pulled himself together very well, because he must have been absolutely bulling. But I think that's a real good sign of a fella. He made his point and showed that he felt very aggrieved, but I thought he did it in a real kind of professional type of a way. as much as in the media we love lads to absolutely cut loose, you'd be kind of proud of your manager the way he did it. You know what I mean? And it's a good sign that they'll probably bounce back even from that. Just on I'm the same. I'm not calling for VAR, but if you have something like a TMO that you can call into action, where it's literally that quick, and I know people are worried about the time. People are worried about the timing element, and we're going to be doing 90 seconds doing this, or a minute doing this, or if Wexford had 2 challenges in a game, 2 calls for a TMO, and that's one of them. You know, it's sorted there and then. It fundamentally changed the game. Like Dublin were a different team after it. All of a sudden they get 2 goals within a couple of minutes and the game is as good as over. It did fundamentally change the game. And apparently, like Rossler said, that Mark Fanning said he was talking to the 2 umpires and both of them said that it didn't cross the line. Like, so yeah.
So this thing's like, where does he get the decision from? Which is the mad thing, because like you think like, well, if the umpires told the ref that wasn't over the line, well then how can he say, oh well, I'm giving a goal anyway? Or like, see, even on that, right? Don't do the challenges thing, don't do the VAR thing and all that. But as the ref, if ye know, right, that there's somebody watching and can buzz you, buy time and just pretend you're conferring with the umpires, but what you're actually doing is waiting for your man to look at the replay, and then he can tell you, here, it wasn't a goal, it was on the line, he flicked it out, just restart with a throw-in, and then just pretend you were talking to the umpires and go back out. There you go. You don't need to stop the game for 2 minutes while some chap is in a truck somewhere reviewing it. We all only had to see it once, and you could so it's just annoying from a Wexford point of view. But look, like obviously, look, them's the breaks. You play the game, and Dublin, just all of a sudden, just the game flipped. Like, it was class from a Dublin point of view.
As well, from a referee, once you make a decision as well, it's very hard to overturn the decision, shall we say? You know what I mean? Like, once he says it's a goal, it's a goal. Whereas if he just, I don't know, they had to confer. They just had to talk it out. They had to be in communicato with the referee and say, listen, a mistake has been made here. Give, Keita or Mark Fanning takes a free inside the 6-yard box and we go on. Do you know what I mean? But that was, it fundamentally changed the game, and hopefully it doesn't fundamentally change the Wexford Championship. But from a Dublin point of view, there's like, we talked about Big Hedgehow on the show before. He was outstanding the other day. The instinct even for the finishes, it was so quick. Ball was barely in his hand and it was gone. It was brilliant. Just we'll keep going on incidents here for a minute. Darren McCarti's red card fundamentally changed the game as well. Tipper gone from been 15 on 15 and thinking, we'll get a good bounce off the Limerick result. We'll hop off Cork. We'll get a bit, potentially, redeem ourselves for the league final. And the script is ripped up, after 30 or 40 seconds. What was your reading on that?
Just mad, unfortunate and stupid. It's just a stupid thing to do for a 19-year-old fella just to get caught doing something like that. Because it was obviously the linesman that caught him. And the weird thing was as well is, like, you think, all right, defender's going to initiate this. I'm going to bully this young fella now and I'm going to suck him into something here. But it wasn't at all. It was him that ran, because he's obviously tried to lay down a marker and say, tip Cork, big championship game down in Cork. You beat us in the league. Well, it won't be that easy in this now, or whatever, which is grand. But just don't do stupid things. Like, if you're going to try and intimidate someone, lay it into him with your shoulder. Don't raise your arm. Don't raise your hurl. Don't go towards him. Don't move your head. Actually, again, just Declan Dalton was probably lucky. There was a kind of a tussle some other time during the game and he led with his head, where he was probably lucky he wasn't caught. But just stupid and unfortunate from Darren McCarti's point of view and from Tip's point of view. But like, he just got caught up in the emotion of it, I suppose. And this is the thing, is like letting emotion take control rather than energy, because when you're highly emotive, you're not thinking straight, and then he just made a terrible mistake.
A couple of things, though, Nisha. If that's a red card, and I'm not saying it's not a red card by the letter of the law, it is a red card. How many red cards would we be dishing out at the start of an All-Ireland final? Genuinely now. I know. You've been up in Croke Park for big games, and not even All-Ireland finals. Like, how many lads would be left on the pitch, like, if we're given red cards for this the whole time? And maybe that's the edict. If that's it, then so be it. But I love that part of the game, I have to say. I love lads kind of going into each other at the start of a game. I don't know. I always took it as a badge of honour getting a handle of a hurl, to be honest with you. But that's maybe a different thing. He was caught, but how many other people were doing something similar on the pitch last Saturday, last Sunday, the previous Saturday, the previous Sunday. Like, I put it this way, Nisha, right? Johnny Murphy refereed the All-Ireland final last year, and he refereed it completely different than any game he's ever refereed before. And had he not, there would have been yellow cards, red cards, there would have been all sorts thrown out. But he refereed it completely differently. So why is it, in a way, why is it a red card at the start of yesterday's game and it's not a red card in an All-Ireland final? That's just, I don't like seeing lads getting sent off. And I don't want to take the physicality out of the game. But I think the idea of any sort of striking action is probably going to have to be, lads are going to have to go and grab someone by the neck or do whatever. That's not raising your fist and striking someone or something like that. There's probably safer ways to go about it, I suppose. I put it that way to you. It'll
turn into like in football when they have fights and they all want to rip the jerseys off each other. Yeah. Where they're pulling and dragging, and you're just like, what are you even doing? But yeah, it just that just comes down to the inconsistency of the refereeing again, like where it's like, right, it either always has to be a red card or never. Like, you can't just pick one and then not do it again then, because like, obviously he's laying down a marker and telling.
He didn't see it now as well, Nisha, by the way.
So this is the other thing again, right? And I've spoken to referees who've been caught with this stuff too, where they didn't see the thing, but then from what they were told by their linesman, they had to give the red card. So then you're kind of going, well, look, he went and this is what was communicated to him, because we'd nearly be giving out to him if we'd nearly be complaining and giving out then if he didn't confer, like we're saying with the goal decision, Yeah. So it's all this stuff. You don't know what was said between linesman to referee. Like, if the linesman tells Johnny Murphy, well, he struck him with the hurl into the stomach, and then you kind of go, well, there you go, red card, like he has to be sent off. So I'd imagine if Johnny Murphy saw it, he wouldn't have given it a red card. Maybe just tell him, especially that early in the match, probably tell him, cop on, play the game, But again, it just totally depends what the referee was told in that decision. Because again, like you're saying, we've seen it a million times, and they're never given red cards.
Yeah, never ever. The last incident I'll talk about is, and you mightn't have seen this, but Tip played Waterford in the Munster Camogie semi-final yesterday, and Tip got. Did you see it? Like, it was like a certain goal, and I know it happened quickly, but it's as obvious as anything that it hit the back stanchion and came back out. Like, it's so obvious, and it wasn't given. Waterford won by a point, and now they're in the Munster final.
And again, like, you're just kind of going like. What are the umpires there for? Or like, what are you doing? Like, if you can't see and you're not going to make the decisions, or you're kind of going, don't do it then. Get somebody else to do it. Like, let somebody else do it. It's just that was brutal, and I saw it there on Twitter, was floating around, probably went viral, like, basically. And Staple retweeted, actually, I think, is how I saw it.
But he looks like he's getting back in the media game, doesn't he? He's a lot more active now recently.
He's basically, he thinks he's the Rock and he's the final boss. It's like he'll dip in and out whenever he wants, and I'm sitting on the board of directors here, and everyone wants to know what I think. Well, we don't, I know. But yeah, it was brutal. Even on that a phone camera recording of it, or whatever it was, that clip on Twitter, you could tell it was a goal. And the way everybody reacts, that's always the tell. The way everybody reacts, like, that's the tell. It's like a free taker or whoever, when they shoot and it goes narrowly wide or narrowly inside, you can always tell, or the person shooting out of hand, you can always tell by their reaction, which is why any young fellas don't react one way or another. Do not react to any shot you take a goal. Then they all went over. Just do not.
We fly through a couple of games quickly, Nisha. Well, not too quickly, actually, but I was down in Walsh Park yesterday. Funny old game. Waterford tore out of traps. We're 10-3 up. Darren Lyons on fire in the middle of the field. I thought Clare had wrestled a bit of momentum away from them and kind of weathered the storm a bit. Peter Duggan, who was sensational for second week in a row, David Reedy the same. They had them back to 3 at half time, and I was kind of thinking, nice breeze at their backs here, and it was a significant breeze because the ball was really, really holding up, even for Patrick Fitzgerald's shot for Stephen Bennett's goal. Like, that would have been 20 yards over the bar on a kind of a still day. And I thought Clare were going to kick on. There was still 3 in it after 44 minutes when Bennett got that penalty. What was your feeling on that penalty incident as well, actually? Mikey Kiley going through. I have to say, I thought was borderline enough now.
So this is the tackle that has just been let go for years now, right? And maybe they're starting to finally clamp down on it. you can't wrap your arms around somebody. Like you can't do that. Flick your hurl in, do something. If you're close enough to wrap your arms around, you're close enough to get your hurl in there. Like, and so they're finally maybe clamping down on this, because that's a foul. If that was in the middle of the field, it'd be a foul. Someone's trying to attempt a hand pass and he gets pulled back, it would be a free and nobody would say ain't really. But so it is a foul. It's just we're gone so probably used to letting that go all the time. But again, as a cornerback, and it was Adam Hogan, as a cornerback, you're probably kind of going, no, that's not a foul, but I'm trying to play the ball. You're not really. You're just trying to stop him.
I am ridiculously biased now. I'm not going to...
I know.
Yeah. When it comes to those type of things, I'm so biased. I just think the deck is stacked in an attacker's favour in general, and they get so much sympathy from referees. And a forward takes 9 steps scoring a goal. Oh, no bother, great goal. A back takes six steps coming out and he's blown for over carrying. Like, but no, I take your point. Clare actually had it back to 3 again, mostly due to Duggan and Reedy. And then, like, that was real poacher's instincts from Bennett. Now, John Conlon completely switched off for a second, but if any forward wants to see how do you follow in a lost cause, or how do you stay active in a game, Bennett was brilliant there. And then within 60 seconds, he had a ball over the bar on the right-hand side. And then he had another one right-hand side down the touchline. And then he had a boomer from about 100 yards. And the kind of one pulling up. For a fella who requires a double hip replacement the minute he retires and has already had 4 hip surgeries, like, what he's doing is phenomenal, really.
Class. He's just, himself and Declan Dalton, like, are two of the cleanest strikers I think I've ever seen, like, as well. Like, when they wind up on their left side, it's more than likely going in the net or over the bar. And that goal is like the epitome of every forward should expect the best and every defender should expect the worst.
Yeah.
The best thing that was going to happen there is exactly what happened, or it might hit the post and he's ready. Whereas Conlon, like you said, just switched off for that second and that's all it takes. And then he finished it. But Bennett was brilliant. That long range one he scored in the second half as well after that, and it was against the wind, like. And I know as well people will be saying, oh, the ball is too light, Right, it's not too light, but also Welsh Park is a small field, right? Welsh Park is a pretty small field, and then when you're on it, it's actually smaller again. You can score from really far out in Welsh Park, like Billy Nolan's point, especially with a breeze. You do it handier in Welsh Park than you would in most other county grounds. But Bennett was class, Barron really good, deadly Patrick Fitzgerald came in and did well, Mikey Kiley did well, Mark Fitzgerald and Duggan.
Dougie,
wrestling was pretty good now as well. Like, just two colossus, and Fitzgerald's point in the first half, brilliant as well. Like, no one was catching them, powering through. So Waterford, like, they'd have to be happy winning the way they won as well, where they kind of pulled away early and kind of midway through the second half, opened up a big enough gap to a point where they can bring on lads, take off lads to be ready for the next game, and just see the game out at home against the All-Ireland champions. Like, so that's a huge win for Waterford. It's a huge win.
Your TG4, or TG Cahir, I should say, compadre, McDonagh had a great stat before the game yesterday. It hasn't happened. It's 2011 since Clare played a championship game without Tony Kelly, without either Tony Kelly or Shane O'Donnell. Like, that was a big sucker punch to take before a ball was thrown in. Now, fair enough, they knew days in advance of his illness and speedy recovery to Tony, and hopefully he's back on the field against Tipperary with a bit of luck for the game's sake as much as anything else. But been without 4 starters from last year's All-Ireland final team, and even just kind of thinking when John Conlon was under pressure yesterday, they didn't have the young Dermot Ryan to slot in maybe 6 and go after Barron. Their options have kind of been shorn now, and they're on the back foot now. They're on the back foot a bit now. They've proven that they can resurrect from the dead. They only did it a week ago against Cork, but they are on the back foot now, big time.
Oh, just hugely. Like, they hugely are. Like, and this is the beauty of the round robin, I suppose, that they're still in it and all. And the draw will probably prove to be huge now going into the last couple of games for them. But yeah, without Tony Kelly and Shane O'Donnell, like, and Dermot Ryan, I suppose, like, but like particularly Shane O'Donnell and Tony Kelly, there's no, I know Peter Duggan was very good and all that, but there's no kind of electricity. Like, there's no buzz, there's no excitement, there's no panic for the backs, is what I'm kind of trying to get at as well. Like, that everybody has to be aware of Tony Kelly and everybody has to be aware of Shane O'Donnell, whereas Peter Duggan, it's kind of like, let's keep the ball out of his hand, do not let him dominate the air, and we can probably keep him quiet enough, whereas he's brilliant with the 2 lads around him. Because again, so just again, the importance of a panel. This is how hard and how tough it is in the round robin. But there's no replacing Tony Kelly and Shane O'Donnell. There just isn't.
That Tip Clare game is massive now, obviously. A draw would probably leave them both in trouble. Someone needs to win the game, and they'll end up on 3 points and have a shot going into their final game. But that is going to be a huge game. And even thinking about, they had that bit of controversy at the start of the year when that challenge game was called off, and there was a good bit of hoo-ha over whether the pitch was playable or whether it wasn't, and there was a bit of over and back. So there's plenty built up. There's so much on the line in that game. In the Cork Tip game, Nisha, it is actually hard enough to analyse, because we didn't really learn too much about either. Cork did what you would have expected them to do, probably for a half or a little under a half. It was very like the league final, in fairness. The Tip didn't throw in the towel or anything like that. But we didn't really learn that much. Like, it was probably a perfect game for Cork in a sense of, after the week before, when maybe the psyche was a bit damaged, that they weren't really tested here. It was a nice win, a comfortable win where they were able to play the ball around, kind of. But we didn't really learn too much about either of them in the grand scheme of things.
No, the one thing I'd be saying, and I was kind of saying it at the time watching the match too, was in the second half, I was just kind of going, what are Cork doing? Like, they should have, like, I know they ended up winning by 15, was it? They probably should have won by about 25. Like, they let Tip come back into the game. People are, fair play to Tip, but Cork totally switched off. Like, there
was a bit of showboating to it, was there?
Just overplaying messy stuff, like where, and I don't mean Lionel Messi, just messy overplaying, bad decision making, where forward blitzing through, just hit it over the bar. Just hit the ball over the bar. Instead of giving this sideways 6-yard pass to a fella who's standing still and then he loses it because he's probably not expecting it. Like anyone else, you'd be kind of thinking, all right, he's just going to hit it over the bar. Here's another point for his grand. And all of a sudden, then you get a pass. It was just a couple of awful decisions made for about 15, 20 minutes there in the second half. But, like, some of the Declan Dalton got, I think it was Declan Dalton's second point. Some of the passing that Cork did in the first half, especially when they were clicking for a game, like hurled hand to hurl, and boom, and little triangular, little bing, 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 and then Declan Dalton got one. It went from, I think it was like Harnedy Horgan out to Declan Dalton, who was standing on his own under a stand, bang over the bar on his left hand side. It was his second point, I think, of the game. Some of the scores they got when they were going well and motor well were brilliant. Patrick Horgan's goal was class. Declan Dalton's goal, like an absolute rocket. But like Horgan's goal, where he kind of just wasn't happy to, I'll get a point from out here, where he gets the dummy, gets inside, blasted into the goal, where you're kind of going, we're killing Tip here. Like, that's the way you would have thought when you have the chance and you have a sniff at doing it, to Tip at home in the championship, like especially that rivalry, like that they just... Now, I know Downey going off maybe can kind of take the wind out of the sails a bit, missing a couple of points takes the winds out of the sail. I don't know. It was obviously Tip, you know, it's just like their game just completely goes out the window, because now Downey is free for the entire match and you can't break them down. They don't have the pace to break them down. They don't have the pace to be chasing and working the whole time. You know, John McGrath gets 2 goals against Limerick, but I mean, he was barely on the ball. Like, it wasn't going past the half back line. Like, so you're playing in that full forward line. You're begging for sniffs of breaks, even, like, which just weren't coming.
Yeah, I thought, when, in fairness to Cork, they kind of buried them early and then coasted to some point. They had the game wrapped up after 20 minutes, realistically, and then they kind of coasted. Now, they could have beaten them by 25. They didn't. That's partly due to themselves, and it's probably partly due to a bit of Tipperary as well, now, to be fair. But Cork have a little break now before they play again. Get Rob Downey back in the pitch. Barrett's going to be back from suspension, but I wouldn't be reading probably too much into it from either side. But that Tip Clare game in 2 weeks' time is going to be a cracker as well. We just got to fly through Leinster. You didn't probably see much of, nor did many people, of Offaly and Galway, because it wasn't televised. I listened to every bit of it on the wireless, and I feel like I was watching it, and I was chatting to a good few people that were at the game as well. Offaly started actually quite well, and were well in the game. Got an early goal, but then they are obviously hit with a couple of sucker punches. They conceded a goal and a point within the space of about 2 minutes. Bad puck, a short puck out turned over, then another short puck out turned over straight away. Sorry now, I know they're sticking to the process and sticking to the system. If you get turned over from a short puck out and you're, breathing a sigh of relief, you put it 120 yards down the other end of the pitch. I don't care. Sorry now. You can't concede from back there, and you can start building and going short maybe on the next one when the confidence is restored. And then Offaly conceded a goal basically when from a 65 where Donald Shirley put his hurl up and it fell into the net, and it was like, it's like two really, really bad goals to concede at that level. And then all of a sudden they get what looks like a reprieve when Dottie Burke is sent off at the start of the second half for an incident at the end of the first half. So a puck out is taken at the very end of the first half. Whistle is blown while the ball is in the air. Comes down top of Brian Diagon and Dottie Burke. Dottie Burke makes a half-hearted attempt to pull, but his hurl breaks. There's a right hoo-ha, and he's sent off when he returns back to the pitch. And I believe Galway were told at half-time, but they weren't told why. They were just told that he was sent off. So Micheál Donoghue gets sent off when the second half starts as well. Like, talk about just not communicating the message. If the message is communicated effectively there's no noses out of joint or whatever. If I think it was wrong. I saw the incident back after, and I think it was harmless, to be honest with you, like really, really harmless. And I would say it would be turned over on appeal, but the way the appeals are going now and the way they're sticking by referees' decisions, right or wrong, it might not be. But in the second half, despite having an extra man, Offaly were nowhere near the pace. Galway tore them apart. Colin Malloy in his debut, only a little whip of a fella from Kilnadima Leitrim. His older brother Brian was on the panel a few years ago. He ran riot. He ended up with 5 from play. Cathal Mannion just controlled the game. I think he ended up with 2-8 from centre forward. And even when Offaly had the extra man, it still looked like he was free. Like, there's certain lads you have to tag, and he would be one of them. So Galway are back on track. And Offaly looked fatigued and tired, and it's just a little bit worrying. It's what I thought was going to happen in Leinster probably happened the other night, and it was a sizable enough beating in the wind-up, and they're going to have to bounce back now in a couple of weeks, and it's not going to be simple. But Galway are back on the horse anyway, you'd have to say, after that result over the weekend. And as I said in the preview show, whatever it is, when they're beaten this year, they've always reacted well the next day. And it'd be interesting to see whether they can react well again. They play Wexford in 2 weeks, I think, in Salt Hill, which is a huge game. Both with a defeat under their belt already. It's this round robin, you say every game is important, but every game seems to take on more importance now, just the way the results are going as well.
And that'll pretty much decide who gets it's pretty much a Leinster semi-final kind of a thing, or an old school quarter-final, whatever. Because that'll decide which one of them two goes through. Like Dublin and Kilkenny are sitting there lovely at 2-2. Happy days, we're grand. Especially with Dublin beating Wexford and Kilkenny beating Galway. That game. And if it's not on the telly, oh my God, I'll have to drive to Salt Hill. But yeah, no, I cannot wait for that one. That'll be, and again, I think both teams have a point to prove. And like we said it, and and Cyril Farrell even said it. I heard him talking after the game as well, that Galway definitely had a point to prove after the first game, that game against Kilkenny, because it was so far from being good enough. It was unbelievable. Like, we had kind of scarcely believed that this was a Galway senior hurling team. Like, it was that bad against Kilkenny. But that's big time win. And again, Cathal Mannion, who was obviously their best player against Kilkenny as well.
Yeah.
He's one of the best players in the country when he's playing at his best as well. And that's what a leader will do. That's what someone does in a game like that, in a situation like that. I don't care if we go a man down. I'm proving that I'm the man here. I'm the best player on this pitch.
Who's the man?
Yeah. Cream it rise to the top. But even Offaly, that's probably a case of and I thought as well this would happen later, and why it would favour Antrim is with so many young fellas, it's going to be hard to get through a round robin getting knocked around by seasoned senior teams. That it'll take more out of young fellas than it will out of a more experienced team, because the conditioning won't be there. The tolerance to damage is not there. And at the time you think it is. When you're 20, 21, you think you're good, you think you're fine, and you're not. You get blown out of them by 29, 30-year-old, you kind of go, right, as the politicians like to say, this is senior hurling. My
worry from an Offaly point of view now is they've Nolan Park next, they've Wexford then, and I'm just wondering what sort of state mentally and physically they're going to be in by the time the biggest game comes along. And that is the 5th round is the biggest game. I don't care. I said it at the start, and it's more important now than ever before. And Antrim played well yesterday by all accounts against Kilkenny, and we're up at half time by a point. And fair enough, they were blown out of the water in the second half, and Owen Cody was flying. But in the jigs and reels of it, a team or a squad can be in so much of a different state by round 5 than they were in round 1. Like before round 1, like after you're flying or whatever, and even after round 1, real good performance, maybe an unlucky result, but that wheel can turn very, very quickly. Like look at Westmeath in 23, how it turned a week later. Even look at Carlow last year, how it turned. It can turn very, very quickly. So yeah, they're going to be interesting games. We probably didn't talk too much about Wexford and Dublin. It was the best game of the weekend, and by a fair distance as well. And it's nice to see the Leinster Championship getting the plaudits that it deserves when it throws up a game like that. Like I would say, Offaly and Dublin the week before, brilliant game. This was even better again. This was up another level. This is class.
Yeah, and like massive win for Dublin, especially with no Donald Burke and no Danny Sutcliffe, right? Like huge win. That was why kind of going into it, I was like, Wexford are probably coming now and win. But like a load of the stuff we pointed out before happened, right? It was the defence. It's Dublin's defence, right? Was a pretty big issue there the other day again. Their use of possession in the first half, when they were on top, again, while we were here watching the match, I said Dublin were a goal ahead and they were doing all the hurling. And I was like, this is not good at all. They should be way more than a goal ahead. Long range frees being wasted. Just mad stuff there sometimes. Paddy Smith then was way better in the second half, to be fair to him, than he was in the first half. But like the winning of this game for Dublin was Cian O'Sullivan, Darragh Power, and Hedjo. Like it was them three, like Cian O'Sullivan, like winning the ball, being an outlet, Hedjo the same, and then Darragh Power, the work rate. Like it was basically, I even thought watching it from the telly, like, and I know it's always different when you're at the games, but from watching on telly, it would have been 50-50 or maybe even 60-40 between Hedjo and Darragh Power for man the match. Like Darragh Power was everywhere. Even when Dublin were under pressure, he was linking up and getting ball from the half back line, turning, popping. So he wasn't like holding possession for long, but he was using it really well. Held it when he had to, gave it when he had to, ran with it when he had to, and then obviously that pass he gave for the goal was absolutely brilliant. And in the pre-game stuff, I was only kind of talking about Ronan Hayes and Hedjo, so I need to apologise to Darragh Power and Brian Hayes. I love watching the two of them playing hurling, and it's brilliant now that they're in there and starting, and they're real kind of key players and key figures on the team. But Dublin really need to tighten up in the back. You cannot. How often do you concede 4 goals and win a game in championship? No. Like you just that can't continue.
Did you see Lee Chin's block without a hurl as well?
It was class.
Like, because that's just nearly a guaranteed finger breaker. Generally, like, do you know what I mean?
Hit him in the forearm, though, did it?
Yeah, he's lucky. But when you go to try and execute it, and we've all tried in our madness, you don't want to be on top of the hurl. You want to get. It's like the distance block. Yeah. You want to get the ball once it's gone about 10 yards. But Chin went all in for it, in fairness, and he took a heavy hit in the first half as well, and did well probably to come back on as well. But Wexford will feel a bit aggrieved. But in fairness to Dublin, when they got a sniff in the second half, they took their opportunities and had a right good win, and they puts them on the front foot now with victories over Wexford and Dublin. Other games outside of that, Nisha, we have to talk about Kildare's big win, first ever win in the Joe McDonagh Cup, and a Kilkenny man steering the ship. And you know what? After the week previous been beaten a point by Kerry, you're kind of maybe to be thinking, morale might be a little bit down or whatever. And this wasn't necessarily a game that people were predicting that they would win. Huge win against Westmeath. Now, we chat about Kildare briefly for a second. It's a disaster for Westmeath. There's no point in saying any different, because they are in trouble now, and they had a very bad start to McDonagh last year, and they were gone out of it really before it really got going. And it looks like the same thing has happened this year as well.
Yeah, and just judging by the rumours and stuff you'd be hearing and all, like, it's probably not surprising. And then from the Kildare side, and Brian Dowling there with them, in a way, you lose to Kerry by a point. your mindset has to be, rather than going, oh, gee, we lost, it should be, I can't wait for this next game. It should be, we need to get that back, and thank God it's coming next week. Rather than, this is the whole thing, the mindset and changing, or whatever way you're thinking, but that's the way it should be, you would hope. And that's what he'd be trying to, obviously, Brian, like, he's a pretty positive fella, like, has done very well with Kieran's, and has done very well with the Camogie team, with the Kenny Camogie team, obviously, but great to see them winning a game at last. Kind of, they've been doing that submarine thing between the Joe McDonagh and the Christy Ring for too long. Like, you'd like to see them again from a hurling development point of view. You'd like to see them now really, really pushing on. But Westmeath, I don't know. I don't know really what's going on there. But just judging from what I've been hearing, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better, unfortunately for them. So there's work to be done there. Whatever that is now, I don't know. But huge win for Kildare, and well deserved.
Yeah, massive win. Huge win for Laois as well. My down prediction is dead in the water. Dead in the water. I don't know what's happened. But they've conceded monster scores in their 2 games. Maybe I placed too much stock on Division 2. But if you look at that and say, Kildare were in Division 2 as well, also on promotion. Do you know what I mean? So it's very, very strange. And I'm sure Ronan Sheehan and Trevor Fletcher and The Rock, who are all up there, will be really disappointed, because they've put themselves in. They have to try and turn around what looks like a bit of a sinking ship as regards their McDonagh campaign. But they do have, Westmeath to come, Kildare to come as well. So they'll be hoping that they're able to pick up points along the way. But it's going to be tricky enough too. Carlow had a good win yesterday as well over Kerry too. They are still favourites, with Laois getting closer, I think, with most games, to be fair. Laois have shown completely different form in Championship as opposed to the league. Like, they were a write-off in the league, and don't think it's any different. I go down through their team sheet now and I think, geez, outside of Ross King, I think they have, and Ender Owen's no longer involved, they have nearly everyone that they should have, and a lot of lads chipping in with scores. I think the 13 different scores at the weekend, which is huge.
Yeah, and I wonder, I suppose, like, their league form obviously had a lot to do with the manager turnover and all that kind of stuff, prep and all that, which is understandable, right? And then now they've had a decent long campaign now to get ready for Championship, and obviously whatever they've done is working. They've seasoned themselves well, and they've gotten ready for Championship, and it's working. But the down one is a funny one. Yeah, it's just kind of disappointed, where I was kind of going, again, based on the league, you're kind of going, God, Down should be really driving on here. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was Carlow Down in the final, but not looking like that at all. And Laois, again, like, look, similar to all the McDonagh teams, like, there's like loads of hurlers in that team that you pick on almost any team. You say, geez, I'd love to have that lad, I'd love to have that lad. But no, it's good, again, from Leinster hurling point of view, like, it's good to see Carlow and Laois and Kildare kind of driving it on there now, and laying down a marker. Down have to win them games at home. They have to win their games at home that they've left. Yeah.
Couple of other results just fly down through in the Nicky Rackard. Roscommon beat Armagh 115-15. That was yesterday. Other Nicky Rackard games, Mayo had a big win over Louth, 223-218. Sligo had a right win against Fermanagh, finished 720-218. Probably just a case of levels there, I'd say, because in fairness, Fermanagh have been playing Laurie Maher for the last good few years. One division up, obviously, in the Christy Ring. Finished Wicklow 217, London 217. Meath had a good win over Derry. That's after Meath were beaten the first day by London, who were beaten by Derry. And now Meath have beaten Derry. So everybody's kind of still in it. And I presume Wicklow are still in it there as well. So it's 4-2, and it's going to all come down to it'll probably come down to maybe score difference even at the end. And in the other ring game, Donegal had a big win over Tyrone, finished 5-18 to Tyrone's 10 points. In the Laurie Maher, Cavan had a big win over Lancashire, 324-214. Monaghan 422, Warwickshire 215, and Longford and Leitrim finished 114 apiece. Just fly through a couple of quick comments, Nisha. Loads of comments in here. One in here from SSRI. The big competition with Joe McDonagh this year was to see who will be relegated now. Yeah, like it's definitely Kerry are not out of the woods. Down are definitely well in the woods. And Westmeath are on ropey ground there as well. And like, leaders within that dressing room need to take that by the scruff of the neck and try and save the situation. And make sure that they're not relegated. Because if Westmeath were relegated, Westmeath, who had the best result in their history less than 2 years ago in the Leinster Senior Championship, if they were relegated, that'd be an absolute disaster. Fio Inish just says here, I remember when Cork won Munster in 2018, the attitude was, we don't want it, they take it now. Yeah, it's gas. That's the last time somebody won a Munster title outside of Limerick. I think, were you similar to me at the start of the championship, where you thought Cork would win Munster and Limerick would beat them in the All-Ireland final?
That's what I said. Yeah, I said I'd be no surprise if Cork won Munster, but Limerick ended up winning the All-Ireland. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And like, when they kick into high gear, like, it's going to be fair hard to stop them. And like, so this is them and Waterford and Dublin compared to Clare. You know, we were talking about the strength of the panel, that Dublin can still win a game without their two superstar forwards, you know, Danny Sutcliffe and Donald Burke. Lads can come in and they still win against Wexford, even though it's at home. Waterford can still win with lads injured and all, and lads coming back, and Desi being kind of quiet, that Bennett and Barron and the rest of them can stand up and win. So all the attention goes to Desi, but then you have to mind the other lads. And then Cork, the same, that Declan Dalton doesn't start, then he starts, gets man the match. You know, and it's like, that's the importance of the panel, because against Clare, remember we were saying what they brought on 4 forwards, and in 18 minutes they only scored a point. Whereas then, like, they were bringing on lads like Robbie O'Flynn was brilliant when he came in the other day. So like, this is the thing, is like, they probably look like the favourites to win Munster because their panel is so strong, especially in the forwards. When people do get injured, which is going to happen, they have lads that can rotate in and do it. Now, obviously, it was easier to come in against Tip because Tip were tired and they only 14 players and all, but they have a lot of less. And they didn't even bring in Diarmuid Ahern either, who was absolutely brilliant. I was hoping they would have brought him on, because I was like, God, he'll find Healy, sorry.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, I hope to bring him on, because I'd love to see him playing now on this. But they had a huge impact off the bench, Cork. So you'd have to say, yeah, right now, favourites for Munster. But I still just, you would be thinking there's more in Limerick. Like, until I see that they don't do it, I won't believe that they won't do it.
Yeah. How do you see that game going? There's only one big hurling game on this weekend, should we say? No, one in Munster, none in Leinster this weekend. That's Limerick heading to Walsh Park on Saturday night. Mad scheduling. Dublin got 2 home games back-to-back in Leinster. Waterford got 2 home games kind of back-to-back. 6-day turnaround, and I do think even that day makes a big difference from a Waterford point of view. Now, at least it wasn't, you know, a point win where you're really driving to the very last second. But like, I was chatting even Jack Prendergast on the field after, those real busybody lads that put in like the cover, the 12 or 15k, it's hard to go again. That's why I'd place unbelievable stock in Duggan's performance for Clare yesterday, because he shouldn't have been able to do that 2 weeks in a row. The man had only heard half an hour of the league before the Munster Championship started. Will there be a residual effect to Waterford next Saturday, emotionally, physically? And how do you see that game going?
I wouldn't think so. I'd say they're probably happy enough the way they came through the game, that they kind of were fine, and they used a lot of their bench as well, and, you know, they protected players like and stuff. So I'd say they'd be happy enough physically. And again, it was probably better the way the fixtures worked out, that their first game wasn't a beaten Limerick. Do you know what I mean? That it was clear, that true, that it wasn't like, oh, Limerick lost their first game and now they're coming to Waterford. You know, so it probably worked out nicely for them, I'd say. So I would imagine, you would hope to God they would be anyway, that you'd be relishing it. Like, this is the kind of challenges you want. You know, you welcome the All-Ireland champions, you beat them. Well, now, come on, let's see what Limerick have. You'd be hoping that's the mentality that they have, and I'm sure they do. Because, again, if Limerick are that step slow again, like they were against Tip, and look a little bit off the pace, Waterford could definitely beat them. But, again, I still think there is another gear or two to Waterford. That they showed it in patches and flurries kind of against Clare, and when the questions were asked, they were able to do it and then pull away. So I'd watch any hurling match. I look forward to them all, but these ones are extra special, I'd say.
Yeah, there's so many incidents. I think we covered most of the major incidents, because in a weekend, some weekends pass by and not too much happens. And I was kind of out and about on Saturday, and I'd people on to me going mad about the penalty in Parnell Park. And you just know, lovely, it's going to be one of them weekends where everything and anything happens. And it was indeed. Nisha, we'll be back chat more hurling maybe Thursday week, but we've lots of football to talk to as well. Thanks for your time, Nisha. We'll talk to you soon.
Hopefully now Neil O'Callaghan can tempt a few of them footballers to play hurling now. Sure, they've nothing to play for anymore.
Good man. Stir the pot. Good luck. The football championship has maybe not been a slow burner, but it fairly exploded over the weekend, and I'm delighted to have Adam Minot with us to discuss it all. Adam, we had the image prepared for the show in anticipation of the weekend action. I kind of said, what's a good safe kind of image to put in? Dessie Farr, good standard. Dublin are going to be in Leinster final. We'll be talking about their dominance or whatever. Not the case. What a result in Portlaoise yesterday.
Yeah, just to clarify for our viewers, we weren't taking the piss out of Dessie by putting him into the graphic. He was done beforehand. Geez, it was what a game. What a game. I watched it back again today. Like it had it all. It was unbelievable. Like none of us saw it coming. Just like you take the semi-finals out of Leinster or out of Croke Park, and all of a sudden a result like this, it's not. I'm not saying it's the only reason. You have to give Meath huge credit for their performance. Obviously, Dublin maybe aren't quite the team that we've been growing accustomed to seeing over the past 10 years or more. But it was an incredible game. I thought Meath were sensational. It was a complete performance by them. Their backs were just ravenous. They're so tough around the middle of the field, and then the triumvirate up front, like Costello, Frayne, and Conlon, the three of them were sensational. Like you could have given the three of them man of the match. They gave to Conlon in the end, but the three of them were just unbelievable. So, Jesus, like hats off to me. It's a long time coming, and just incredible scenes as well when the final whistle was sounded.
How big of a shock is this? Where do you rank this in, say, football and shocks? Or we'll just stay with football. How big of a shock do you think it is? Like, Dublin are a lot weaker than they were. There's no point in saying any different. And when you look at it in the cold light today, you're thinking no Fenton, no McCarti, no Mannion, no McCaffrey. Fair enough, Small was back in or whatever. But you're no Mick Fitzsimons, 5 maybe pillars or whatever. And you're missing all that leadership from the dressing room. Like, it was funny. I talked about 2010 last week and where they got 5 goals. Like, to imagine that they were like 17-5 up. Like, I was like, someone saying it to me, and when you're at a game, I try to just stay focused on one game, because you end up kind of looking everywhere, not really looking anywhere. But like when someone said they're 17-5 up, you're kind of thinking, Jesus Christ, is there a gale behind them or what? And there was a big breeze behind them or whatever. But it's an amazing result. What other big shocks do you think of when you think of big kind of football and shocks?
Well, I don't know. I think you made the point you made there is very important. It's kind of, this sounds a bit weird. It's shocking because it's been such a long time coming. But when you look at the teams and you look at like Dublin's kind of form, and I none of us gave me the chance really. I know that, but at the same time, I mean, it's not like Dublin were going to lose a game eventually. I know we didn't expect it to happen so soon, but when you look at the personnel, like their standards have gone down. I think the way they managed the game towards the end, I thought was very un-Dublin. Like they were giving the ball away, kind of unforced errors that you never see that happen with Dublin. They're always so clinical. At one point, Conor Callan went through and he had options either side, and he fisted over the bar, and they're going like, "You're down 5 points." Like, you just wouldn't expect them to make that kind of decision. No, look, obviously they're known as well for taking the score when it's on, but still, the goal there would have been huge for them. And there was just lots of little things, little slip passes that were just going to the wrong man. And at one stage, there was an unchallenged kick across a square kick around the 65, and it just went over the Dublin fella's head and turnover for Meath, and it just gave them that oxygen. So, like in terms of like it's such a great talking point because it's been so long coming. But I don't think the gap was actually that big anymore between the teams. That's the reality of it. It's very jarring for Dublin. Obviously, it's hard to see how they can bounce back from this. They're going to be third seeds in the Sam Maguire, which makes things very interesting.
With a bit of luck.
Well, I'd say there's a few bar owners around town rubbing their hands. I'd say they'd be happy to see that draw coming if it comes. But no, look, it makes things very interesting in terms of that. But yeah, it was just like like, in fairness, I know you can talk about the venue and all that and talk about Dublin's demise, but I think you have to just take your hat off because of Meath's performance. Like, they were incredible, I thought.
Some of the other big upsets that I would compare to, probably Clare beating your good selves in 92, Leitrim beating Mayo in Connacht in 94. To me, the Mullen Yachter one with Kilmacud Crokes is probably one of the biggest upsets ever. And funnily enough, Donegal were the same odds to beat Dublin as Meath were yesterday when they beat them in the 2014 All-Ireland semi-final. And it was a big shock as well. But it's funny, yeah, I was shocked and surprised, but you're kind of thinking it had to happen at some stage, but you didn't think it was going to happen or come close to happening until it actually did. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're thinking, oh, it has to happen. There has to be slippage. You can't just stay plugging holes. It's kind of like the great Kilkenny team. They were able to keep doing it for a while in 15, and you think they're going to do it again in 16. Then all of a sudden they don't, and you realise, okay, the gap is not that big. Their reaction will be fascinating, and I'm not just even talking about the coming months. I'm talking about the coming years. The reaction to the last time they were beaten in Leinster was 14 in a row. Do they have that generation of players coming? Probably not, to say the least. And the underage success is not on par with what was coming back then, but it really has lit up the championship. And from a Meath point of view, I gotta put out some kind of funny, kind of weird, obscure names here now. But like, I'm thinking of when you look across different sports and see the amount of times when a big dog was taken down and it wasn't in a final, the amount of times whoever beat them doesn't go on to win the thing. I'm thinking of, I don't know if you're a darts man, Kirk Shepherd beating Wayne Mardle in the 07 PDC semi-final after Mardle beats Taylor in the quarter-final, who's going for, I don't know what he's going for. Mayo beating Dublin in 21 when they're going for 7 in a row, didn't finish the job. Galway beating Dublin last year when they're going for 2 in a row or whatever, didn't finish the job. There's so many instances of this in history where you take out a big fish and then you don't finish the job. The fact that it's Meath and Louth as well just adds so much to it. Like we would have said, oh, when will Louth ever get the chance to avenge 2010? And obviously there's none of the same personnel, still like playing personnel involved in either squad, but this is their chance. And from a Louth point of view, went about their business pretty well against Kildare. There was not much between them when they played in last year's semi-final, and there's not much between them now. They're kind of actually the seasoned team going into the Leinster final. This is their third Leinster final in a row. Blown out of the water the first year under Mickey Hart. Really competitive last year under Ger Brennan. And like a word on him, like a lot of people would have thought that the wheels could come off potentially when Mickey Hart left, and he has kept that train so firmly on track. Like, and you're kind of thinking then as well, oh, is this the next Dublin manager? Maybe as well. And who knows how long away that'll be. I know there's a lot to digest there, but it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it is. Like, it's so nice to see two different teams with a genuine chance going into the Leinster final and winning it, and it means so much to both of them. I was watching the end of that Louth game there against Kildare, and it was a 1-point game, and your man Durnan, isn't it, Tommy Durnan?
Tommy Durnan, yeah,
an absolute monster of a 2-pointer from outside the 45, and he was under pressure as well. Like, it was kind of a wild enough attempt. Like, he was getting blocked down, and he cleared the ball. Like, it was an unbelievable score to put them 3 up. And then I don't know if you saw it. There was a Kildare on the attack looking for the goal, and Louth turned it over, and didn't Craig Lennon get the ball and boot it out over the end zone? Time was up, like, and he's celebrating.
There's actually a picture floating around on Twitter. He's celebrating, and all the other Louth lads are kind of like,
the boys are behind him like this. What are you doing? And then, so obviously the game carries on. If it's a 45, not if he thought it was like game over, but it needs to go out over the sideline. And Kildare dropped the ball into the square trying to get a goal. It went out for another 45, so it did go back out again and get another 45, and eventually it went wide. But I'd say he was fairly nervous, I'd say, for the last 30 seconds of that game. But no, look, it is great just that it's open up now to two teams that have a real good chance all of a sudden of winning silverware. And there'll be plenty of talk about that 2010 game over the coming weeks. And yeah, look, I think it's a good thing. I'd say the Leinster Council are fairly happy with the way things are panned out now. They're getting enough. They're getting in the neck now for the last 10 years about how bad the competition is and all the rest of it. And like, I'm the biggest critic of all, I'd say, of the provincial championships. And the last 2 weeks we've had the Cork Kerry game, which was absolute cracker. you had Meath yesterday, which is probably the moment of the championship so far, and it'll be hard to top that for any team. So maybe the provincial championships are back.
Yeah, it was listen, it was just the shot in the arm that the Leinster Championship needed. They needed something like this because it's so stale. Dublin were going for 15 in a row. There was apathy around the province, and this has just re-energized it. I'm living in Meath here, and I was hearing fireworks going on off last night. I presuming they were Meath football related. They surely were. I went out to put some clothes out in the line around 9:30 last night. Now look, there was fireworks going off, and it's going to be a real good buzz around it. And it's going to be a hefty crowd at this game. There'll just be, I'd say, everyone and anyone that has ever followed either county will be going to this game. It's a must-see game, and it's a must-go-to game. And as you say, I think the Leinster Council will be licking their lips. And they were two very entertaining games. Obviously, they went right down to the wire. And then you had Tyrone and Armagh over the weekend as well. The new rules are delivering. There's no point in saying any different. They're delivering so much more drama, so much more entertainment already at this early stage.
100%. And just on the new rules in relation to Meath, the new rules played a big part there in that Meath game, because in the past we would have seen teams going up against Dublin and they're sitting back and they're being cautious and they're trying to grind out a result or trying to limit the score. In the new rules, you get rewarded for going for it, and there is more space. And every team has a few attackers that can put the ball over the bar. Just maybe we haven't seen it from some teams because they've been ultra defensive. But Meath were so brave. They weren't afraid to put the ball wide. They weren't afraid to kick the ball in and turn the ball over. It was just all on the front foot, and kind of similar to Cork the week before, and how kind of aggressive and how intense they were. And I think the new rules played a big part in it. But definitely, the Armagh.
Just on that for a second. How ironic is it that Robbie Brennan was giving out about the rules? And
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
You look at your phone and it's 20 points to 5, and I looking at my phone, it's 17 points to 5. They're the ones. I think about it, Robbie Brennan's comments. They're the ones that rip up the script. Jim Gavin comes up with new rules that ultimately takes down the Dubs and ends Dublin's 15 in a row. And Leinster. It's mad, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, we were kind of having a go at Brennan over those comments earlier in the year, and we thought that I remember saying that maybe he's worried about Dublin down the line, but it was the opposite. It was true, that they were the ones that took advantage of it more so than Dublin. But yeah, it is funny. I know the managers are going to complain about stuff. They're going to put. They're going to maybe deflect the odd time if a result doesn't go their way, or if they think that something might come back to bite them down the line. They'll try and lay the foundation there for an argument they're going to make later on in the year or something. But no, to be fair, you have to give Robbie Brennan huge credit for the way he played. Like I said, they were so brave and they got the reward. But yeah, up in Ulster, I thought that game was very exciting as well. I felt Armagh were probably the better team, all right, overall. I know you tipped Armagh to win that game last week, and I tipped Tyrone. To be fair, I thought Armagh were definitely the better team. They showed a lot of attitude, a lot of character. Had their struggles earlier on in the season, of course, but having said that, look, Tyrone were still in there. They kept battling, and they got it back to a one-score game at the end. And I think obviously the big talking point is the final play after the hooter was gone. I thought it was a foul. What did you think?
Did you see the other side? Did you see the other side? I thought it looked like more of a free from the other side than the initial angle.
Yeah, I think Cahir O'Kane had a video from the other angle. Yeah, I think that's where I saw it as well. Yeah, it did. Look, I think Peter Hart will say, look, I didn't even use my hands. He had his hands out like this, and I think that's the argument Tyrone fans are making, that sure, how can it be a foul if he didn't use his hands? But sure, it can be, if you barrel into some fella and knock him over, even if it is with your chest, it's still a foul. And I think he had to make the tackle. You know what I mean? I think he had to do something because your man was going through on goal. So I thought it was the right call. Obviously, in that scenario, it's really frustrating when the game's over. It's the last kick of the game. But yeah, there's a few interesting things with the rules. I think it was the first time we saw a manager get penalised the 50 metres. Kieran McGeeney kicked the flag, and David Goff went over, booked him, gave Tyrone a free inside on the 20-metre line, and took it back out, and that was a 2-pointer.
Imagine that made the difference.
Oh, and it looked like it could have been towards the end. It looked like that could have been nearly the decisive score. But look, if he did kick the flag, that's obviously dissent, and Goff as well.
It's so harmless as well in a way, flag, an inanimate object, yeah.
I know, the poor flag. But to be fair, if anyone's going to make that call, it's Goff. If there's a new rule, I'd say Goff must hold a record for enforcing, like, the kind of most regular enforcer of the new rule. As soon as the new rule comes in, Goff will be the first man to penalise someone. But he was calling steps a lot as well. I think the steps is going to be a big talking point as well. The FRC, or there was guidance issued kind of on behalf of the FRC to referees and the county boards, sort of clarifying things. They had to clarify that it's 4 steps. Like,
it was funny, wasn't it? Yeah,
yeah, funny, like that rule's been there for how long, like, and they clarify that it's still 4 steps. But I know there was the high profile one with Seanie O'Shea, but like, just for the crack, I went back and I watched the start of the Kerry Cork game again, just the first 10 minutes of it, just to actually see how many times did someone overcarry. Sure, it's on every possession someone takes 6 or 7 steps, like. So if they're going to come down on that, there's going to be 100 extra frees, 70 extra frees a game. Do you know what I mean? I just think that it is unfair on defenders when an attacker overcarries, obviously, and especially under the new rules when they're getting exposed more. So I understand why the FRC are like underlining it, that like we have to actually call the 4 steps. But I don't know. I think 5 and 6 steps is it's so ingrained in fellas now. I don't know if you can even. I don't think you can enforce 4 steps anymore. Like, really, like, I mean, if you letter the law, if you call 4 steps every time, like I said, the game would be unwatchable. There'd be way too many stoppages. I think it sounds a bit kind of counterproductive in a way, but if they really wanted to come down it, they could nearly up it to 6 officially, and then literally call it at 7 every time, because 4, 5, 6 is just, it just happens so often, and that's what fellas do. If they say, okay, 7 is too many, we know 7 is too many, and then we're going to call it at 7, I think that's more probably realistic. But I certainly
is this not like the speed limit though? Like, if it's, you know what I mean? They're going to add at least, what is it? Is it 10% that's added? If it's 60, you get away with 66. That's what the way I always kind of look at it. You know what I mean?
That's the thing. Like, if you give fellas an inch, they'll take a mile. Like, if you say it's 6, they'll take 7. They'll probably take 12 or 13. Do you know, that kind of way, if you up it. But I think I do feel for defenders, because they're kind of out on an island at the moment, and some of the overcarrying is a bit ridiculous. But I just don't know. Like, I worry that, like, the game's gone really exciting all of a sudden. I worry then that we're kind of taking a lot of attacking play out of it, because, like we said, like we spoke about this before, if you're going past the guy and he pulls your arm after 4 steps, your unwritten rule is that you get an extra couple of steps. That happens all the time. And, like, we need that to kind of happen for there to be goals. Like, you know, the fellas rarely go through untouched. Do you know what I mean? So it's a tricky one.
Imagine Owen Merchant's goal against G in the replay, shall we say? Do you know what I mean? Where he's kind of fouled or whatever. It probably would have been a foul around 45, would it?
Yeah,
you'd be happy, like, don't get me wrong. You'd be happy if you'd been fouled out around 45 too, like, but
he took about 100 steps, to be fair. I'd say he should have got booked. He took so many steps, but no, like, you do want things to favour the attacking team, but I do understand defenders now are probably going like, Jesus, like, everything's favouring the attack.
100% already. It is,
So look, I think they'll probably have to. You have to do something, but, like, it's either all or nothing. Like, you can't be calling 5 steps one time and then letting 7 go the next time. It's just a bit messy. But a lot of rules in the GA are like that, in hurling and football. You know, there's stuff that's kind of not enforced and then kind of becomes unenforceable.
Yeah, Rory Grugan's influence late on, Adam, was huge. Like, he'd big influence in their last 4 points, basically, between assists and scoring himself.
He's so clever. He's such an intelligent footballer. He just makes the right decision all the time. If he needs to slow it down, he'll slow it down. If he needs to inject a bit of pace, he'll inject a bit of pace. He's so reliable. He can take his own scores. He's the fella that you want on the ball, obviously, from our man's point of view, and get fellas running off him, because he's the puppet master really inside there. Brilliant player. But yeah, look, we talked about it last week. Whoever won, whoever lost, this could be a launch pad, and it could set the other team back a good bit. Like, Armagh will be buzzing after that to come through that kind of test against a big rival, to win it with the last, obviously, after the hooter with the last kick of the game. It'll mean a lot to them. And look, they haven't won Ulster in a long time. Obviously, winning Ulster, if you know they won the All-Ireland last year, I'm sure winning Ulster was the first thing on their agenda this year that they wanted to do. And they're in the hunt now. They're obviously going up against a strong Donegal team in the final, but they'll have every chance of kind of getting that monkey off their back as well.
Yeah, 2008, I think, since the last one in Ulster. And it'll be high up. It's number 2 on the bucket list. Number 1 is obviously to do back-to-back in the All-Ireland. From a Donegal point of view, probably haven't, like, lit it up yet in the championship, really. We're workmanlike enough against Derry, something similar against Monaghan, probably something similar against Down again yesterday. you'd imagine there's a few more tricks up the sleeve yet, but they're doing their business professionally, effectively, and not losing too many bodies along the way, which is key as well.
Yeah, it's controlled. It's all about control with McGuinness. Like it's very controlled. There's no histrionics. It's all very just like, we're going to get the job done. Even within matches, the individual matches themselves, the way they play is so controlled. You know, they're okay. They do take chances going forward, but without the ball, it's very much like containment. It's like, we're going to hold our positions. They're unbelievably well organized. We always know that about Jim McGuinness teams, but we haven't seen them we haven't seen them let loose yet. We won't see that until we have to see it. Do you know what I mean? Like, we won't see that until if Armagh put it up to them in the final, which I presume they will. We might see a different side to them, but as yet, look, they're definitely, I think they're in probably everyone's top 3 for the All-Ireland, if not top 2. But like that, they haven't really. I mean, their path in Ulster has been, I won't say favourable, but it could have been tougher. Do you know what I mean? So I think obviously Armagh have come through a tougher test than Donegal did against Down. So yeah, look, I think they're from day one. It's been a very steady season by them. Obviously, they won their first few games in the league and allowed them to take the foot off the gas for the rest of the league. They're kind of going about their business in the Ulster Championship without being spectacular. So maybe they're timing it. Maybe they're timing it for the right time. They're coming into the business and now really, you know, like the draw is on this week for the group stage. Like, that's going to tell us a lot about where teams are going to need to be. Because obviously, if you get, and look, I was looking through the seeding today, and I might just go through it actually.
What's the group of death?
Well, like, I mean, obviously, I'm looking at it from a Kerry's point of view, and I'm looking at the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. Now, like, okay, so there's 2 ways of looking at it. Obviously, Dublin that's obviously a very tough draw, but I would love to get Dublin in Killarney, and I'm sure everyone in Kerry would as well. I put up a poll actually on Twitter just to see Kerry fans, who do they want?
I voted for Dublin as well in the poll.
Yeah, well, I would have as well if I could, but I knew what way the vote was going to go, because listen, I'm from here. I know what's going through people's heads. They're going like, geez, we'd love to give Dublin a touch down in Killarney, like in front of a packed house. But look, like, obviously, first of all, Kerry have to beat Clare for that to be a possibility to get the 3rd seed at home in the first game. But like, if you look at the 3rd seeds, so obviously the top 2 seeds are going to be the provincial finalists, the provincial winners and the provincial losers from the 4 provinces. Then the 3rd seeds are Dublin, Tyrone, Monaghan, Roscommon. Like, there's no handy game there really. Like, I mean, obviously you'd be hoping for maybe a Roscommon if you're looking for just going on league standings and how they've gone so far this season or whatever. Like, Tyrone would be a very tough draw there for any provincial champion. And then in Division 4, like Derry, Cavan, Cork, and Down, like, there's 3 Ulster teams there, and the number 1 seed. So looking from Kerry's point of view, they'll be away to the number 4 seed. So you could be away to Ulster there, or Kerry could be away to Cork again.
Yeah,
like Kerry could.
Yeah, you could have a group there with Kerry, Armagh after beating in the Ulster final, Dublin, and Cork.
100%, yeah, 100%. Like, there's no guarantees there. Like, and Kerry got a kind of handy group last year, and it didn't really stand to them. But there's 2 hard ends, you know. You don't want to go too far the other way. But like, sure, like Galway, Mayo, Kerry could get one of them as well, and like, it's going to be an interesting draw. But yeah, look, I think we're going to find out now when the draw is made where teams are going to need to be, who's going to need to get their act together for the next. Like, it's going to start in Saturday 2 weeks. I think is going to be the first game in the group stage. So depending on your draw there, teams are going to have to ramp it up big time over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, just a couple of fixtures to look ahead to. Kerry have had the dominance over Cork at underage for a good while now. I think it's nearly in double digits of games between minor and under 20 and senior. I think that Kerry have won. They're facing off against Cork tonight in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. That's live on TG Car at 7:30. And obviously this weekend, it's quiet enough kind of weekend. As regards action, there's obviously only, as I said, there's only one round robin game in the provinces. That's Limerick and Waterford. Then on Sunday we have Kerry and Clare in Fitzgerald Stadium at 1:45, and we have Mayo and Galway on Sunday as well in McHale Park at 4. You'd expect Kerry to win the Munster final. There's no point in saying any different. Mayo are pretty big underdogs against Galway in that Connacht final at home. Galway going for 4 in a row. you'd imagine to be a bit of a bouncer. You get something out of Mayo. They like this position, coming in this position, kind of written off, underdogs at home. You'd imagine to get big support. And there was only scoring in it last year when they played in the final. That's looking like the game of the weekend, realistically.
Yeah, people forget that last year, the Mayo-Galway game, how close it was, and Mayo season kind of obviously didn't really amount to anything, and Galway almost kind of went all the way, and people kind of wrote that like season off for Mayo, but like that could have been very different for them, you know, if they'd managed to win that game. They're quite unfortunate. Yeah, look, they're going to have to show something if they have anything about them in that scenario, going up against their biggest rivals. They're obviously going for 4 in a row. Like they'll have to step up, and like they haven't really been tested a whole pile in their semi-final and quarter-final. They got a bit of, I would say they got a hiding from Kerry, but they weren't really close in that game either. Kerry were comfortable. So they're going to have to come out swinging. There's no point saying otherwise. There's no point doing anything else. You might as well just have a go. Everyone's back in Galway. It's a bit of a shot to nothing, but it's only a shot to nothing if you actually go for it. If they go out and they're kind of, if they don't give a good account to themselves, if they're not kind of physical at least and give them a rattle, then look, obviously, then, you know, if they do that, if they're kind of, if it's not typical Mayo, you know, absolutely going 100% out and kind of like a fever pitch kind of game, then people will be obviously very disappointed in them. But I think they have it in them to put up the Galway. I wouldn't be expecting them to get the job done. To be honest, I'd be back in Galway in that one as well. But yeah, look, these games can always be feisty when there's a local rivalry involved.
Yeah, hoping there's a big Mayo performance brewing, but quieter weekend to look forward to. But Jesus, what a weekend we look back on there. I don't think we'll have a weekend like that in a while, where you have about 10 different talkaboutes and some of the biggest upsets we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I hope not, because obviously I hope we're not talking about Kerry and Clare too much next week, but you wouldn't know what Peter King could do coming back. He knows those boys inside out, so that's an interesting storyline as well. So and he probably feels hard done by the way that Jack replaced him, like, so that'll be tasty enough. But obviously the cards are probably with Kerry, you know, but I'm sure he'll have some sort of trick up his sleeve, and it'll just be interesting to see the sideline and the shaking hands and this kind of stuff. Like there's a bit of a kind of a sideshow there. So yeah, look, something to look forward to there. But as I said, you would obviously expect, I think, Kerry are like 1-100. So I mean, hopefully that's how it plays out from my point of view anyway.
Imagine the dream scenario. Well, not the dream from your point of view, but yeah. Clare somehow win and Peter Keane gives it to the big one, to the county board chief sitting in the stand or whatever.
Geez,
but
imagine,
he was obviously felt very hard done by, and rightfully so. There's ways of doing things, and it's similar with Colin Bonner, what happened in Tipperary. There's ways of doing things and being respectful to people, and then there's what actually happened. So that'll be interesting. Adam, great stuff. We'll chat to you again next week. Thanks a million for tuning in, folks. Brought to you once again by Lottoland, and we'll be back on Thursday week to preview and review all the action, and we'll see you then.